Hello everybody, this is Ian K, and initially I created this video back in July on my other YouTube channel, which is Comics Division. There I typically talk about the wokeness that has infested entertainment, such as comic books, movies, and TV shows. And I created this video because it was something I felt that was very important. And so I've decided to go and split this off and re-upload the video here, where I can go and talk about more of what's going on with the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, the kind of weird craziness that's going on in politics, political commentary, without it messing with my other channel. So here is my re-uploaded video. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so this article is published on The Hill and it came out on June 25th. It is called Introducing the Great Reset: World Leaders' Radical Plan to Transform the Economy. And if you guessed socialism, you guessed right, but in reality it's communism, because that's obviously they're not going to call it communism, they're going to call it radical socialism. Radical socialism is communism. Now I want you to remember as we go through this article that this is coming from The Hill, not InfoWars or Alex Jones, so just bear with me as we go through it. For decades, progressives have attempted to use climate change to justify liberal policy changes, but their latest attempt, a new proposal called the Great Reset, is the most ambitious and radical plan the world has seen in more than a generation. Now, we have seen attempts to use policy changes like this before, using the environment as justification, for example, the Green New Deal. And fortunately, that thing fell flat. At a virtual meeting earlier in June, hosted by the World Economic Forum, some of the planet's most powerful business leaders, government officials, and activists announced a proposal to reset the global economy. Instead of traditional capitalism, the high-profile group said the world should adopt more socialistic policies, such as wealth taxes, additional regulations, and mass Green New Deal-like government programs. Now, there is one thing that I did find rather interesting: the fact that, yes, your ears heard it right, it did say activists, not just world leaders and business professionals, but activists. So what do activists have to do with government policies? Let's go and continue and find out. Every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. What exactly do they mean by transformed? And I'm not exactly sure what they need to do to transform tech. Anyway, let's continue on. Wrote Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, in an article published on the WEF's website. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. Now, if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the world, you would have noticed that for the last month or so, there's been a lot of worldwide protests and rioting over the death of George Floyd, and somewhere along the way it stopped being about this man's death and it turned into something else, specifically about dismantling systems of oppression and more specifically capitalism. And if you don't believe me, some of the leaders of BLM are in fact trained Marxists.
He was concerned, or is concerned, that that there's a lack of perhaps ideological direction in Black Lives Matter that would allow it to fizzle out, as he said, in comparison to Occupy Wall Street. As you are advanced in your own organization, as you all are headed to Cleveland to participate in this Black Lives Movement conference, how do you respond to that particular critique? Again, a loving critique from an elder of the struggle that some others share, that I've even shared as well, to be frank, as a concern about, in part because of the co-optation and the appropriation, that a more clear ideological structuring might be of some value here. But how do you respond to those kinds of, again, loving criticisms?
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might, I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
Nobody asked for your help but race!
Joining Schwab at the WEF event was Prince Charles, one of the primary proponents of the Great Reset. Gina Gopinath, the chief economist at the International Monetary Fund. Antonio Gutierrez, the Secretary General of the United Nations. And CEOs and presidents of major international corporations such as Microsoft and BP. Well, if Bill Gates can't take over the world with his operating system, I guess he'll shift to other means. I wish I could say I was joking. Activists from groups such as Greenpeace International and a wide variety of academics also attend the event or have expressed their support for the Great Reset. Although many of the details about the Great Reset won't be rolled out until the World Economic Forum meets in Davos in January of 2021, the general principles of the plan are clear. The world needs massive new government programs and far-reaching policies comparable to those offered by American socialists such as Senator Bernie Sanders and Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in their Green New Deal plan. Or put another way, we need a form of socialism. Now, here's the thing. This is my opinion, but I'm pretty sure when they're saying socialism, they really mean communism. And here's why I think that. Because if they were just to go and flat out just come out and say communism, the people who are dead set against communism would obviously come out against all these policies. So they have to go and sneak it through the back door, just using the term socialism, because more people would buy into it. Maybe. A word the World Economic Forum has deliberately avoided using, all while calling for countless socialist and progressive plans. And it's pretty simple. The reason why they don't want to come out and say is because they know that people are probably not going to be on board with it. Specifically, it being socialist and progressive plans, communism. We need to design policies to align with investment in people and the environment, said the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation, Sharon Burrow. Above all, the longer-term perspective is about rebalancing economies, whatever that means. But this is where things begin to get really interesting with this article. One of the main themes of the June meeting was about the beer bug pandemic has created an important opportunity for many of the World Economic Forum members to enact their radical transformation of capitalism, which they acknowledge would likely not have been made possible without the pandemic. Let no good tragedy go unwasted. We have a golden opportunity to see something good from this crisis. Its unprecedented shockwave may well make people more receptive to big visions of change, said Prince Charles at the meeting, adding later, "It's an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again." Like I said, let no good crisis go to waste. And this is some scary stuff. People are going to try and use this disaster to sway people to a way of doing things that they wouldn't otherwise agree to or believe that we should do. It's like whenever there is a mass tragedy, the media as well as certain politicians use that as an opportunity to ban certain things that go boom. You might be wondering how these leaders plan to convince the world to completely alter its economy over the long run, since the COVID-19 pandemic most assuredly won't remain a crisis forever. The answer is that they've already identified another crisis that will require expansive government intervention: climate change. Okay, so things like this honestly are not new. They've been trying to push policies around climate change for years, since the 90s, when they've announced that we should go and use something like a carbon tax or a carbon credit system. Al Gore. So yes, this is nothing new, but maybe because of the beer bug, they can make advancements in these types of policies. And also, I want to remind you that this is coming from The Hill, not Alex Jones or InfoWars. This is a reputable news source. The threat of climate change has been more gradual than the beer bug. but the devastating realities for many people and their livelihoods around the world, and its even greater potential to disrupt, surpass even that of the beer bug, Prince Charles said. Now, I want you to pay special attention to this next paragraph because it is a doozy. Of course, these government officials, activists, and influencers can't impose a systemic change of this size on their own, which is why they've already started to activate vast networks of left-wing activists from around the world, who will, throughout 2021, demand changes in line with the Great Reset. Does any of this sound familiar to you people at all? And let me go and reread this again. I want to remind you for the third time now that this is the Hill. I'm tapping on the big blue box that says the Hill. I know you can't see it on the screen here, but I am tapping on it. This isn't InfoWars. Of course, these government officials, activists, and influencers can't impose a systemic change of this size on their own, which is why they have already started to activate vast networks of left-wing activists from around the world who will, throughout 2021, demand changes in line with the Great Reset. Now, this is something we've been seeing going on for several months now. It stopped being about the death of George Floyd, and it started to be about the dismantling of systems of oppression, which is, for the most part, capitalism and Western civilization. When people start talking about dismantling white supremacy, what exactly do they mean? What does white supremacy even mean these days? For the most part, and again, this is my opinion, gotta be very clear on this, they are talking about Western civilization and Western culture. According to the World Economic Forum, its 2021 Davos Summit will include thousands of members of the Global Shapers community, youth activists located in 400 cities across the planet. The Global Shapers program was involved in the widespread climate strikes of 2019. I have no idea what that is. I've never heard of it. And more than 1,300 have already been trained by the Climate Reality Project, the highly influenced, well-funded climate activist organization run by former Vice President Al Gore. Now, Al Gore has been at the climate change racket for a number of years. Back in the 90s, he created a company to go and sell pollution credits to countries as well as companies to allow them to go and pollute. So this is all about money to him. I don't think it's necessarily about the environment whatsoever. For those of you who support the free markets, the Great Reset is nothing short of terrifying. Yes, it is absolutely fucking terrifying. Our current crony capitalist system has many flaws, to be sure, but granting more power to the government agents who created the crony system and eroding property rights is not the best way forward. So yes, all this is very frightening stuff. If you live in a Western country, you really should be concerned about this because it's going to impact you. And if you take a look at what's been going around the world with these protests as well as riots in countries that, specifically, for example, the UK, where they don't have police brutality issues, you still had rioting and protesting there. Why? Well, I personally, again, this is my opinion, I think this is all related to the Great Reset. They said it in the article. They are activating activists that are going to be spouting demands in line with the Great Reset. And we are beginning to see that now. On top of that, we even have politicians that are making these demands as well. Now, this article comes from Real Clear Politics, and it was published on July 7th. It reads, Seattle City Councilwoman, we will not stop until we overthrow capitalism, replace it with socialism. Now, this is clearly in line with what was stated in the Hill article. And again, this is coming from a city councilwoman, not just an activist, though she probably is an activist in my opinion. But what she's saying is in line with what they're going to want to do with the Great Reset, demand socialism and the dismantling of capitalism. This is coming from Forbes. It came out on July 8th, one day after the Real Clear Politics article. Rep. Ilhan Omar wants to dismantle systems of oppression. What's the problem with that? Well, Seth, let me ask you a few questions as well. When that system of oppression is the economic system that your country uses, along with many other countries, and it's the reason why they're prosperous, and it's actually not a system of oppression, that might be the fucking reason why you don't want to do it. Just throwing that out there. I can go on and on with this. I'm actually going to call it here, but this actually plays into what we saw coming out of Bad Robot with their dismantling of white supremacy, and this plays right into the Great Reset. And I'll be covering that in a future video. But for now, I'm going to call it quits. I gotta go to bed. I gotta get up early. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, share it with people that you think would be interested in watching it. I do think that this is a pretty important topic that we do need to talk about because it is going to impact all of us. I'll catch you next time, folks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. More original content will be coming very soon. This is Ian, signing off.